We want to talk about luxury in Albuquerque, luxury homes. And let's just talk about a definition real quick. When people talk about what is considered a luxury home, there's a general rule of thumb in the real estate world that says 10% of all the homes sold in the market at the highest price point are considered luxury.
Help, I need some guidance. Help, selling and buying. Help, I need some real estate. Help.
Tracy, it is getting toward the end of March 2025, Albuquerque Real Estate Pod number 528. And what do we have this week?
We have all sorts of things, the typical, right? We have a testimonial from one of our great clients. We have a featured, but it's not really an area this week. We have a feature. We have our question of the week. And I know we have from our Statomatic, Tigo, I know we have some stats.
And I have something unusual. I usually talk about housing and housing prices and what's going on with that in Albuquerque, but I've got rent. I want to talk about rent because rent is obviously something that's part of the whole housing econ world. And we just finished a legislative session here in New Mexico, and there was a whole bunch of stuff related to housing, and I'll give you the short of it.
Good.
Nothing happened.
Good. I was like,
yeah.
Let's go through that really briefly.
Very little happened. There were some bills that could have been a problem for housing that ended up going nowhere. There were a whole bunch of proposals that just ended up going nowhere for fixing some of our housing challenges in New Mexico. So that's all I'm going to say about that.
Okay, sounds good. And Tigo, we're going to a real estate event this week in Scottsdale. And it's always great when we go to these events and we just network with some top brokers around the country. And just to remind everybody, we know people pretty much everywhere. If you're moving somewhere or moving from somewhere outside the metro area, we can probably help you find a great realtor and make sure you get great service. So where do we start?
Let's talk about, well, you said area of the week, but it's not really area of the week. It's areas of the week. But we want to talk about luxury in Albuquerque, luxury homes. And let's just talk about a definition real quick. When people talk about what is considered a luxury home, there's a general rule of thumb in the real estate world that says homes that are in 10% of all the homes sold in the market at the highest price point are considered luxury.
And so, Tigo, we're members of Luxury Division of Real Broker, which you have to qualify by selling so many homes over a certain price. I think that when I filled out the qualifications for us to join Real Luxury Division, it was homes over $750,000, and it was like 3 listings and three home sellers represented and 3 buyers represented in a time frame to even qualify to join Real Luxury. But when we are part of Real Luxury, there's a lot of extra perks and benefits for our home sellers of luxury homes, like that international exposure that we get to share with our colleagues around the country.
Well, the networking piece is big. Obviously, the training and working with luxury buyers and sellers, it's not the same. And so you've been involved in all that training and understanding that and living in that world. But so let's talk about Albuquerque.
Great.
All right. So in Albuquerque let's say in the last 12 months, there were just over 10,000 homes that sold in the greater Albuquerque area. And remember I said, it's
top 10.
The 10%, top 10%. So that would put homes over 600,000 and above are considered luxury. So if you're wondering if you're in a luxury home, is it worth $600,000 or more? And then the answer is yes. And there were just over 1,000 $600,000 homes sold in Albuquerque in the last 12 months.
10,000.
Yeah, of the 10,000.
So that's 10%.
That's 10%. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
so
of course.
So 600,000. But when we get up to 1 million, let's call that the ultra luxury. That's the top 2% of all the homes that sold in Albuquerque. So it's just about 200 homes right around that $1 million and above, a little bit below. I mean, I think you did a search and went up to like 999 or whatever, something like that, right? But yeah, so it's interesting. It's only 2%, $1 million and above. And you can buy a lot of home in Albuquerque for $1 million.
So you keep saying Albuquerque homes, and I want to be clear. Albuquerque real estate is the whole metro area. This is Placitas. This is the East Mountains. This is Las Lunas. This is the whole metro area, Edgewood. So, Tigo, I also did some research on it.
Yeah, let's pull up the map. I'm going to pull up the map as you're talking about that.
So, Tigo, my numbers were a hair different than what you prepared because I prepared for properties listed at $999,000. So when you first pulled this up, I went, there's way more than that. Well, you had to point out to me that they've grouped things together. So those circles that say 23, 24, 22, they lumped together. So when you zoom in, you can see there's Corrales. There's quite a few active right now in Corrales for sale. There's 2 pending in Corrales. There's 2 pending right by our office in the far North Valley. There's Los Ranchos has a pending and an active. But, when you look at it in the big picture, Tigo, we can kind of say there's a few parts of Albuquerque that tend to have most of our luxury homes for sale. So high desert area, North Albuquerque Acres,
So
Corrales.
let me pull that up. Let's look at that. So if you're online, we're looking at the map so you can get a sense. Let me just pull up the map
Look,
here.
Tigo, One Coyote Trail just came on the market in the last 24 hours.
Yep,
I hadn't even seen that yet.
Real time, yep.
That's a very south end of Corrales, that address.
So now we're looking at the North Valley and the far northeast heights. And so you'll see that most of those homes that are for sale are North Albuquerque Acres, right? So what's North Albuquerque Acres like, Tracy? Just kind of explain what that area is like up here.
North Albuquerque Acres tends to be acre lots that are actually 0.89 acres for the most part. They vary. But they're where people buy their own lot, find their own builder, and do a custom home typically. And it's pretty much the area north of Paseo del Norte and a little bit south of Paseo del Norte down to the top of Tanawan there. And then we have Sandia Heights, which is, the foothills of Albuquerque. And kind of those older, also where people bought their own lot and hired a builder. So there's no cookie cutter in those areas. And then we have High Desert, which is also in the foothills, but the master planned High Desert community. And you can see there's a few in the 1 to 2 million range on the market, a 2 million in pending sale, 3 million in pending sale, which is more like Glenwood Hills, I think, which is also the foothills. Yeah, Paseo del Puma is just on the south side of High Desert. So you can see a lot of concentration in the far northeast part of Albuquerque. The other thing, Tigo, right by Albuquerque Academy, the new construction by Pulte Homes, there's one there. And when we get to closed, you'll see quite a few that were sold above $1 million in that area. Let's go over to the west side because we've got Oxbow that's above the bluff. And we have the west side. There's a few neighborhoods there with $1 million properties and all the way up into Rio Rancho and Corrales. So what's surprising, Tigo, is when I started, doing the whole Metro Albuquerque search, there's the Oxbow that you're looking at. So for people who are watching online, Water Willow Place. Those homes tend to have spectacular views, some of them of the water in the river all the way to the mountains. So a great location for people who want to be kind of close to getting to the airport or downtown or uptown, close to I-40.
Let's just talk about, so I zoomed back out on the map here and we're looking at kind of the whole area. So we've talked about North Albuquerque Acres, what that's like, right? It's larger lots, estate lots, as you could say, custom builds, Sandia Heights, Rolling Hills, again, custom builds. A lot of those are older homes. You've got High Desert where you've got a mix of homes, but then you have the estate lots that are up closest to the foothills and the mountains, and then the valley. So we haven't really talked about the valley.
Let's go to closed sales. So we're looking at that map next, and we'll talk about the valley. So the valley is sort of near North Valley, Mid Valley, far North Valley. And that's where we're finding the properties in the North Valley. So the North Valley has older properties. It's got some newer properties. When I actually looked through the homes that have sold, it's a variety. We've got El Caballero off of Chavez. We've got Tinnin Farms. We have newer Francisca, that's Tinnin Farms. We have some in Dietz. We have the near North Valley. So kind of the valley can be, those acre lots or more, but some of them are on sort of infill, very high quality custom homes that are on more infill type lots. Acequia Trail.
And in the North Valley, unlike, let's say, gosh, I don't know what to say. It's more rural. It's more of a rural feel, right?
Right.
Than maybe North Albuquerque Acres, some of the stuff in the Northeast Heights. You've got maybe people with horses. You have, a variety like that.
Oh my gosh, yes. You go out and show houses in the North Valley. And I've shown a lot of these streets. When I saw the street names, I went, oh yeah, I've shown Acequia Trail. Oh yeah, I've shown that street. But a lot of times when we're out showing homes, you have to stop to let the guinea hens walk across the road, or a big flock of geese is in the irrigation that's been flooding a field, and you can stop and enjoy that. You can see horses and llamas and ostrich and all sorts of things as you're in the valley, just like Corrales. Pretty awesome. Plus other parts of our city too.
So I'm moving down to Oxbow. I want to talk about Oxbow area, and then I want to talk about Corrales, and then I want to even talk about Rio Rancho, believe it or not. I know.
Yep.
So let's talk about Oxbow.
So Oxbow was also a master plan community where they developed the lots, put in the streets and the underground utilities on the bluff up above the river on the west side, just north of I-40. And they sold the lots individually so people could choose their own builders and put together their own custom floor plan and have their house built, and some really beautiful, unique properties there.
The other thing about the North Valley, you've got let's say the west side of the river, as well as when we think North Valley, we usually think of the east side of the river, but you also have some areas north
Right.
of the river. So you have riverfront estates,
You have
windmill
black farms.
estates, black farms, right.
You also have Andalusia, and I know you moved the map a little bit, but Andalusia, south of Montano, is that master planned neighborhood across from Jinja. And the lots down by the river can definitely be over $1 million. We sold one probably 5 years ago, or I did, probably at least 5 years ago, that was over $1 million in Andalusia.
Now
So-
let's go northwest of the kind of the Metro Valley Albuquerque area. Let's talk about Corrales.
Corrales, so very rural, right? Horse capital of New Mexico, considered to be one of the lowest crime places in New Mexico, and it's got its own unique quirks. A lot of neighborliness there, right? They've got parades, they've got like the horse parade and the Christmas Caballero parade. They've got ball fields, they've got a swimming pool with like all summer. They've got lessons and things. They have tennis and pickleball courts, and you see people doing things in Corrales along with all the different animals and the trails to walk and ride your horses. Rio Rancho, Tigo, so the area west of Presbyterian Rest Hospital where people have bought their own lots and hired builders. We've seen some sales over $1 million there. Actually, right now, if you were still on the active and pending, one of the houses we listed recently is over $1 million, and it's sitting in pending sale right now, very close to Rest Hospital on a lot, but so all over. But
Yeah, so let me can I just I want to talk about what I'm really interested in is how diverse we have in Albuquerque, right? We've got the rural areas, let's say Corrales, even the South Valley, Los Lunas, some of those areas, Bosque Farms, you can find big estate lots, rural areas, again, North Valley, Corrales, that type. But then you go over to the west side, like Black Farms, Riverfront Estate. These aren't necessarily rural. You've got large estate homes, more modern maybe than some of the haciendas type homes you see in Corrales and the North Valley. And then now Rio Rancho, where you have some of these homes that I would consider like ultra modern homes in some of those areas up in what we call Unit 10,
Yeah.
west of
Rust.
west of Rust.
Yeah, and what we haven't talked about yet is the other side of the mountain. I feel like I have to sing a song. The other side of the mountain.
I know. So go back to the
So
kids.
we've got Paco, we've got San Pedro Creek, we've got San Pedro Overlook. We have other neighborhoods on the east side where we do see $1 million sales. So I know we started this segment by saying luxury is 600,000 and above, but we had to limit it to $1 million and above to really be able to focus on where they're really at. There's some $1 million sales even Edgewood and south of I-40 in the East Mountains. What surprised me the most is when I got to the map and showed active pending sales, which I don't think we have active pending sales on one slide here, but in the Los Lunas, Bosque Farms area, quite a few. Right now, there's a pending sale in the Los Lunas area, very close to the freeway. And I thought, wow, that must be on a big piece of land because it was very pricey. I need to find it here. $1,210,000, and it was not on a big lot, it was 0.41, and that one's pending sale right now.
So what's different about Los Lunas?
What's different? It's kind of booming right now. We've got a lot of employers that have been moving in there, jobs, and their policies, I think, are very forward right now. They're really working to attract businesses, attract people, and make sure they have jobs.
So, okay, you started talking about the East Mountains, but let's go back to that real quick again, because I'm trying to, what I want this section to be is about like all the different areas that people look at for luxury. So we've got, you talked about the East Mountains. So East Mountains is a little bit, again, a different landscape. What's different about the East Mountains? When we say East Mountains, that covers a big gamut, right?
It does. East Mountains can be just a lot that has, a house. It might have septic and well, feel very rural. It could be very treed. It could be very much out in the prairie. But the few neighborhoods that come to mind, like Paco has in my opinion, world-class golf course. They have, a restaurant in the golf course clubhouse. They have homes for sale that are on the golf course or not on the golf course. They have some that back to open space, just beautiful homes. And Paco was the same, where it was a development where they split up all the lots and sold them individually so people could find their own builder. So there's nothing cookie cutter there. San Pedro Creek, which is right next to Paco, is 10-acre home sites, and most of them are right at 10 acres. There's a few that are larger, but it's a minimum of 10 acres. And you cannot fence the whole 10 acres in San Pedro Creek. They leave the land open so the wildlife has its natural habitats, but a lot of huge views from San Pedro Creek estates, just big. Then there's San Pedro Overlook, which was kind of developed after San Pedro Creek. It's a gated community with sort of concierge services. And the lots there tend to be 3 to 5 acres, so not the 10 acres. But for people who just really love to be in nature and it's just beautiful out there, I used to work in San Pedro Creek. I started my real estate career there 22 years ago, selling land in San Pedro Creek. And it was just beautiful being out there every day and walking the land. But it's like from our house in Corrales, it was a 45-minute drive. So if you want to get to the international airport and live on the other side of the mountain up by San Pedro Overlook or Paco or San Pedro Creek, getting to the airport isn't like some big cities. It's like you can have the best of it. And there's great restaurants on the east side of the mountain and shops.
And again, it's that mountain vibe. It's that kind of living in the mountains feel, which again, it's I'm just getting back to this whole diversity thing about, all these different options. Okay, and then lastly, let's talk about Placitas and maybe a little bit about Mariposa.
Sure. Placitas and Mariposa, a lot of times I show the same client both of those communities because they're a little bit out there. You can have big views. And sometimes people want Placitas, and then I take them to Mariposa, and they go, oh, I love this. So let's talk Placitas. So Placitas is very much like on the way to Santa Fe, right? People kind of go, oh, this feels like Georgia O'Keeffe paintings, right? With the scrub sagebrush and the views, and you can see to the Jemez with a lot of the lots, or you can see the Sandias out the other direction. It's kind of rolling hills and big parcels.
That's what I was going to say. The topography is very different than Albuquerque, East Mountains. It's more of a New Mexico, kind of northern New Mexico vibe with the rolling hills and the huge views. And
and the landscape. And then there's the wild horses that roam freely that I'm sure people feed. Not that I've seen it. Okay, I saw somebody feeding them. But people leave out water for them and things.
Salt Lake,
We've seen the wild horses, though, when we rode the rail runner to Santa Fe one day. They were out along the tracks. So, Placitas has its own vibe, and, they've got a few places for the people who live there to gather, some cafes and some art studios. A lot of artists that seem to like to gravitate when they have open art studio days. Placitas has a lot of stops at people's home studios.
As I was moving the map around, Tracy, I realized we haven't talked about this neighborhood in Bernalillo, which, I mean that in the sense that it's like we don't think of Bernalillo, the village of Bernalillo, as having some of the most premier estate properties in the entire Metro Albuquerque area. but we do. It's on the west side of the river, right?
Bosque Encantado, yeah.
Yeah.
I actually had some data on that, so I'm glad you brought it up. But Bosque Encantado is a beautiful neighborhood down by the river. Again, beginning of that neighborhood, it's gated. The west end of it is half-acre lots, well, a third-acre lots, and there's a few half-acre, and then the rest are all at least full-acre lots. Beautiful custom homes in there, and, quick out of there from 550 to I-25. But
One last one. Let's hit on Mariposa since we're kind of doing the north.
so Mariposa,
the north side of the area here. Yeah.
Mariposa is a master planned community in far northwest Rio Rancho,
Yep.
developed by the same people who developed the high desert in northeast Albuquerque. And we have a variety of builders in there. So we've got production built homes that, one builder took out maybe 100 lots and they built there, and another builder, there's several different builders still building in Mariposa, beautiful homes. And there's estate lots. So you can find, $1 million properties there or a $400,000 property. And right next to it is Mountain Hawk, where there's a lot of new construction for production built going on right by the Armory, is it called?
Yeah. The armory.
The
So,
National Guard.
yeah. Yeah.
So there you go.
We
there's-
covered a lot. We've had the screen share here. You haven't seen us, but here, let's bring us back on screen, Sam. And
I think we went on way too long, but there's just so much to talk about in luxury.
well, I think it's fine. I mean, if somebody is interested in luxury and higher end homes in Metro Albuquerque, this gives you a really good overview of the entire community. And of course, you can reach out to us and we can get much more detailed on what's out there and what's available. Did you have any more you wanted to hit on luxury homes?
I just had a quick stat or three.
Okay.
Active of those properties that are $1 million or above priced, their average price per square foot right now is $380, $84 a square foot. For those,
I remember in 2021, there was a home that sold for over 300 a square foot. It was the first time ever in the Albuquerque area. I was very familiar with it, and it was unprecedented at that point.
what year?
No, 2001. I'm sorry. What did I say? 2021?
Yeah.
2001. Yes.
But we weren't even in real estate then.
I know, but we lived in the neighborhood that it sold in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So of the houses that are in pending sale that were priced at $1 million and above, they were average square foot list price was $343,000. So there you go. Luxury homes in Albuquerque and the whole metro area.
More than you ever wanted to know. But
or not enough.
Yeah, I know. That's just it. It's, where do you stop?
I wanted to talk about specific properties because there's some awesome ones on the market, but it just, can't do it all.
Can't. No, if you go to our website, we've got a page specifically about luxury properties for sale in the Albuquerque area, and you can visit our site at welcomehomeabq.com.
Let's talk about testimonials.
Yeah.
So, it's always so fulfilling to help somebody with their real estate dream, whether it's buying or selling, and helping them through that journey. And we feel so honored to be a part of it. And I know for people on our team that work in real estate and our realtors, they say that why they love real estate is the joy they get of helping people with their home ownership, right? Well, we had like 3 testimonials come in recently, all for Kori Bristow. And Kori's just a dynamic, amazing realtor that just goes above and beyond. I think about what she spends her time on. Like on Saturday and Sunday this week, she was all over the city getting some new staging stuff for a client, meeting others at a house she has listed for sale because she likes to be present. It's a $1 million+ property, and she just feels like it's best if she's there to make sure it gets presented in the best light. Well, we had 3 testimonials come in recently for Kori, so I'm going to go through them real quick. This one says, bought a family home in 2025 in Anderson Hills. Kori's a go-to for out-of-state buyers. She is so experienced and so easy to communicate with. Her energy is boundless. She is always available to answer questions and keeps me updated every step of the way. A few hiccups happened during the process, but it all worked out in the end. Another one, a single-family home in Harris Arroyo in 2024. Kori is the best realtor I've ever worked with. She went the extra mile to make house buying experience a breeze. She kept us up to date on everything during the process and was always available to answer questions or help us with an issue. If you're buying a house in Albuquerque, don't hesitate to contact Kori. You will not regret it. You know, the first one mentioned that they were an out-of-state buyer, and they picked Kori from reading all of our bios on our website, and she said, I feel like I want to work with Kori. So it worked out great. Last one, can you scroll down? Sorry, I'm reading them. Kori was absolutely astounding. She was proactive in seeking out properties, extremely flexible on organizing showings and responding to phone calls, and available at all times of day, even sometimes at 6:30 in the morning. She was also incredibly warm and a kind person to boot. I'd recommend Kori in a heartbeat to anyone looking for a home. So, you know, we're so honored that we get these and that clients take the time to give us that feedback. And, you know, people looking for a realtor, they go to these and look at them and they read them and they go, hey, I want to work with that person. So thanks everybody for taking the time to share that with us.
No, good. Thanks for sharing that. And yeah, we appreciate it for sure.
Do you have some stats for us,
Of
Tigo?
course. I ended up down this rabbit hole this week on rent prices in Albuquerque. Zillow puts out some really good data on property rent prices, what things are renting for. I know we don't deal with rentals, but it's really a key part of the entire, real estate ecosystem, right? And what's going on with that. One of the things that I found is rent prices have really moderated over the last last 2 years. Yeah. So I've got a chart here. If you go to our website again at welcomehomeabq.com, I did a blog and I've got some interactive charts on there that show us what rents are at, what the trends are, and all that stuff. So to start off, like I'm showing it on the screen here, but you can jump on our website. And what they look at is they say the typical rental property, either multifamily, so when they say multifamily, it's apartments, or single family. So the typical multifamily residence right now, they're saying is $1,368 a month. Now that's average across, all bedroom sizes and all that stuff. The interesting thing about that is up 3.5% from 1 year ago, which is very moderate. But look at this chart, Tracy. Look at 2021 and what rent prices did that year.
So just to be clear, when I look at this chart, the first thing I thought was, oh my gosh, rent prices have dropped. But actually, it's a year over year chart. So
yeah, the rate of appreciation
has dropped.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We're really back to more of a normal. If you go back here to 17 and 18, you can see it's 4, 2.5, 2, and so on. But again, during the pandemic boom, go ahead.
Well, what's interesting too is there's no negative on this chart going back to 2017. Not 1 year did rent prices actually go down versus up.
No, and so that was for multifamily. For single family, the median, I'm going to say median for the typical rental house, single family house, is $2,050, which is, you think about, you go back to 2019, pre-pandemic, it was $1,273. Now it's $2,050. So rents really moved up. And again, we look at the year over year, over the years, this year, it's been about a 3% increase. And I live in that world, single family rentals. I know that world very well. And that sounds about right. But there was a time where rents were going up substantially, and single-family home rents were increasing at a much faster pace than the apartments. What's happened is in the last few years, we've got a lot of apartments coming online in greater Albuquerque. I mean, Tracy, you see that just when we're driving around town. You see it. There's a lot of them in the pipeline. So that's kind of my quick thing. One thing that Zillow also does that I would just want to hit on is they call it a rental demand score. And what they do is they give it a score on, I don't know what the value is, but a higher number means that there's more demand for that property type. And for Albuquerque right now, it's ranked a 77. And to put that in perspective, nationally, it's 63. So what they're saying for single family homes in the Albuquerque area, rental demand is still higher than the national average. For multifamily homes, it's 58, which means, that on that chart also on multifamily, it was 63, which means for multifamily, the demand is not quite as high in the Albuquerque area. And I think that's going to be true for the next year or so. But as we get more properties rented, all these new ones that are coming online, there is a concern a couple years down the line, we have no new construction of multifamily in the pipeline, and we're going to be back to a serious shortage situation on rental properties. So we'll see how that shakes out, but I wanted to give that update since I did such a deep dive on it the other day.
Great. Thanks for that, Tigo. I know that everyone appreciates your regular updates on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. Where else you do all of your stats?
Yeah.
So make sure to follow, like,
one more
share.
thing I want to share before we go.
Okay.
So I have this tracker that looks at every week in real estate in Albuquerque and what's going on. And the thing that's really interesting about it, I recently got some data that shows me how many homes are in pending and how many homes have gone under contract. So it's an early indicator of what sales activity are going to be like. And as of this week, there are about 15% more homes in pending under contract than there were last year. There's also been more homes coming on the market. There's also been more homes going under contract this year versus last year. So it does look like we're shaping up for a stronger sales year this year. There's been a lot of anecdotal stuff about, activity for home sales in Albuquerque, that things are heating up. I know you've been saying all year that it just feels like it's earlier this year, and I think that's true. So I think people just need to know that, there's plenty of activity going on there. There's plenty of buyers out there for the right home and, at the right price for them. So, yeah.
Yep.
Wanted to share that.
Good. Yeah. And this week, the weather's warming up again, so I expect we'll be busy. I think a lot of people are through spring break. It seemed like a lot of people were out and about. We had a lot of open houses this past weekend. Lots of people attending open houses. So I think the spring selling season is definitely heating up.
Yeah. That's awesome. Good.
Well, thanks, everybody. We appreciate you listening in. And if you have real estate questions, we're here for you. We can definitely answer them.
Yeah, our phone number is 505-448-8888. We're the Venturi Realty Group of Real Broker here in Albuquerque area. And we are done with episode 528.
There we go.
Over 10 years. So Thanks for watching. Take care. Thanks for watching the video all the way to the end. We appreciate you. And please click subscribe. We'll keep you updated on what's going on with real estate in the Albuquerque area and New Mexico, and of course, across the entire country. Have a great one.